योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिमानतोऽस्मि। लये सम्बोधयेच्चित्तं विक्षिप्तं शमयेत् पुनः सकाशायं विजानीयात् समप्राप्तं न चालयेत्। Om. So in our last session we studied the concept of asamprajnata samadhi, that is where only the awareness of the object of meditation is there. And actually Sitaram Garu today, I don't see him today in the panel yet. Sitaram Garu actually pointed out very correctly that when we are actually worshipping a particular devata and then we get absorbed in that devata, is it asamprajnata samadhi? The answer is yes. When we are completely merged with one devata, it is asamprajnata samadhi. And this also is even in the Upanishad, this is mentioned, na anyat pashyati, na anyat shrunoti. In that absorption, we don't see anything other than the object of meditation. We don't hear anything other than the object of meditation. And when such absorption is there, it is asamprajnata. And it is a samadhi because it is not even a ekagra chitta vritti. It's not even one where ekagra also, there is some element of ego that is involved. But then in this state of samadhi, there is nothing. So we continue then. In the 18th sutra, they says, Virama pratyayabhyasa purvaha samskara sheshaha anyaha. So it's okay, we have got one-pointed focus completely. We have focused and then we got the asamprajnata samadhi. Anyaha. Anyaha means other than samprajnata samadhi. I'm sorry, I was talking about samprajnata. Other than the samprajnata samadhi, which the 17th sutra talked about, is there anything else? Anyaha. Abhyasa purvaha, because of the previous practice, all the mental chitta vrittis, that is the pratyayas, the various chitta vrittis, they are put to rest. When there is this perfect concentration, then the different ways of the fluctuations in the mind is put to rest. Then what is remaining? What is remaining is the Purva Janma Samskara, that is all, and the various vasanas. And those will be in a dormant state. So when all the Purva Janma Samskaras, why you Purva Janma Samskara, even the samskaras we have gone through even in this Janma, when all of them cease to have any pressure on the yogi, then this samskara and vasana only remains. See, this is still a defective in the sense of, because if the goal is not to be born again, still as long as this samskara is still remaining, then also a person has achieved the yogic state, all right, but he may take based on this samskara, there can be rebirth. So to point out that in the 19th section, in the 19th sutra, the sage says, Bhava pratyayo videha prakriti layanam. That means based on the residue of this samskara, these meditators, either they attain liberation, depending on how much of samskaras have been removed, vasanas have been removed, then they are liberated. If something is remaining, they actually take rebirth. But the good news is, whatever practice has been done, however less, and that practice is not futile. this is assured even in the Bhagavad Gita, Nehabhikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate. And the asamprajnata samadhi also has got two kinds of the situations. The two kinds of situations are called as upaya pratyaya and then bhava pratyaya. So in this section he is talking about bhava pratyaya and upaya pratyaya, two kinds. Pratyaya means cause. Simple. It's only a big term in Sanskrit. Pratyaya means cause. What is the cause? That is the method. And in this method, upaya pratyaya means through the means of meditation we have adopted. Bhava pratyaya, bhava means samsara. Whether samsara we come back or get out of the samsara is determined based on the means. True, end always is related to the means. So based on this residue, either one takes rebirth or one gets liberated. But all these are wonderful states, but obviously it requires a whole completely different lifestyle. The total different lifestyle is one must become a sannyasi, completely go away from all our responsibilities. Then only such a thing is possible. That's why I'm racing through this couple of sutras, because it is really not very practical for us. The reason is we cannot abandon our responsibilities. We cannot abandon our families. Why is it we cannot abandon? For two reasons. One is we committed to that. It was our choice. Like Adi Shankara, if we had taken sannyasa when we were 9 years old or 8 years old, that's a different concept. But at 8 years old or 9 years old, what was our choice? Our choice was, in childhood, balastavat kridasakta. We were interested only in playing. Tarunastavat taruni saktaha. In youth, we were only interested in having relationship with another person. Tarunastavat taruni saktaha. Then in old age, we are all burdened with worry, thought, regret, anxiety. Vruddhastavat chinta saktaha. And therefore, with this kind of lifestyle we have led, how can we get parame brahmani kopina saktaha? We cannot get in parama brahma. Focus on that. So what is the other alternative? Itaresham, for some people like us. Does it mean to say that the yogic practice is completely denied to us? Patanjali Maharshi is not a person who will abandon anybody as hopeless. He says, no, even those who are in the samsara, without having to give up, they are able to, there is capacity for them to actually get into this state of samadhi. Only thing is, they must know where to look for and what is the process. So, in the 20th sutra, Yoga Shastra now talks about Itaresham, that is, those who are unfortunately not born as yogis. Those who are born as yogis, Adi Shankara was born as yogi. We do not know how many janma sadhanas was there for that particular jiva. He takes that birth. At 8 years, he gets complete renunciation. And then he had to be given another 8 years. And then he had to be given another 16 years to live. All for the sake of Loka Kalyana. He never asked for it. If we see the life of Shankara, whose Shankar Jayanti incidentally is next Sunday. No, not next Sunday. It is the 16th Sunday. So, Aitaresham, for us, what should we do? He gives 5 steps, and this order also is very important. 5-step process. The first is called Shraddha. The most important beginning for all of us samsaris is absolute faith, conviction that this Yoga Shastra is valid. It works. It is actually useful. With Yoga Shastra, it is possible for me to attain a state of yogi. If not in this life, in another life. But if you look at the successive aspects that he talks about, slowly a sense of hopelessness that I have not done all these in so many decades, it slowly disappears if we follow this algorithm that Patanjali Maharshi gives here. First and foremost, let us develop Shraddha, an implicit faith, trust, suspension of disbelief. First thing is, as Sri Vaishnava tradition rightly puts it, very first thing we need to have is Rakshishyati iti Vishwasaha, a firm conviction that some force, Ishvara, we will look at Ishvara shortly, this Ishvara is definitely going to hold my hand and take me to the status of a yogi. And that won't come immediately. For that also very hard work has to be done. And there is a beautiful Subhashita. I want to kindle a fire. If I have to kindle a fire, of course nowadays we have many devices, we have matchsticks, we have gas lighters, so on and so forth. But suppose we don't have any of these things, what do? You take 2 dry twigs and then rub those 2 twigs vigorously. It lights up. It catches fire. So here you please think about where was this fire? If you take just the 2 twigs, can you see the fire? Can you feel the fire? And if you have only one of the twigs, can you make fire out of that? When 2 twigs are rubbed together, how is it suddenly it can actually light up and bring fire? The reason is Agni is dormant in all the faggots. Just like Agni is dormant in all the faggots, a yogi is dormant in every human being. But one single faggot is not enough to light the fire either. We do need 2 pieces. Now what is that second piece? That second piece is whatever we have faith in. To make it easier, Patanjali Maharshi introduces a concept of Ishvara. We will look at Ishvara as the second faggot. So, not only the fire should be dormant in the first faggot, fire also should be dormant in the second faggot. You cannot take just a faggot, a piece of wood, dried wood, and rub it against water, for example. Though it is said that in water also there is fire, but the 2 things do not come together to make the fire. So it has to be another identical concept. So in the context of Yoga Shastra, what happens? I, the individual, is a Purusha. So the first of the faggots has a dormant Agni in me, and I am called Purusha. So I have got to take another faggot, which is also a Purusha, and with that Purusha, I have got to rub myself. And that Purusha, Patanjali calls it as the Purusha Vishesha, a very special Purusha, without whose presence, without the presence of this second faggot, just as fire cannot come, the Purusha Vishesha, Ishvara also is required, and I have to have faith that this second piece of the dried wood, when I rub against it, I can generate fire. That faith is extremely important. So the Subhashita says, Kashtat Agnihi Jayate Mathyamanat. Kashtat Agnihi. With this faggot, Agnihi, the fire, Jayate, it develops. By what? By Mathyamanat, when the two are rubbed together. So then we also say that Ishvara is actually within me. And then that also needs the faith that after all Ishvara is within me. But this which is within me also has got to be dug out. For that we take another metaphor. Subterranean water is there everywhere. But to get this subterranean water, you have got to dig the earth. So Shraddha is also this process of digging. So by means of this digging, Bhumihi, the earth, Toyam, water, Khanyamana dadati. When it is dug, it will give you. So again I have to have the Shraddha that Ishvara is within me, and if I dig into my personality deeply enough, this nourishing water called Ishvara will actually come out and will be available for all time to come. Just like when you dig a well, as soon as you have dug the well and the water has come up, perennially water supply is there. Look at the power of Shraddha and power of faith. The power of faith is as soon as you have cut through the Sharira in your dhyana, and then you have discovered Ishvara in your own heart, just like a well perennially supplies water to you, similarly, Ishvara will be all the time available to you. So, first is Shraddha. So for this, what do I need? What equipment, what should I do? I should take this faggot and then find Ishvara and rub against him. I should take this tool and then dig into myself. But for that, next thing that Patanjali Maharshi says, you need virya, viryam. Virya is first courage, it is total energy, and it is strong will. So we talk about will, energy, strong, all of those things. When we translate it into simple term, it only tells us that we need enthusiasm. One of the problems of our life is our enthusiasm for life, our enthusiasm for knowledge is so fragile that the smallest difficulty, smallest challenge will actually make us feel, oh my God, I've got so many problems, I got too many things that is bothering me, and therefore I want to take a break, I don't want to do anything now. A lot of people do that, isn't it? So we take a break either for the sake of having pleasure, or we take a break because there is difficulty. So sukha, dukkha, both of them can cause us to break away from this enthusiasm. And after all, our life is only made up of two things, either sukha or dukkha. Only thing is the proportion may be different. The Jaina wisdom tells very beautifully, this is called Utsarpana, Avasarpana, that is rise and fall. When there is fall, what happens? The Jaina Siddhanta talks about Dushama, Dushama. Dushama means distress. Distress outside, distress inside. Coronavirus outside, worry and fear and anxiety inside. So we are now going through a period of Dushama, Dushama. Then that period will come, okay, we are all vaccinated, we are a little more safe, at least we cannot go to India, all right, we'll accept that. We cannot see our relatives, we'll accept that. And at least all of us who are vaccinated can meet together, but still it hangs on us that there is still this virus spreading. So many people, known and unknown, are actually affected. That's a second stage of the growth, which is called Dushama. Then Jaina Siddhanta talks about the third state, where it is Dushama, Sushama. That is, there is difficulty, but there is also some glimmer of happiness. Then it is Sushama. Then you go to Sushama, Sushama, where everything is happy and everything is beautiful. Then the decline also starts. Haven't we seen this in our lives itself? So, Sukha Dukkha, either it is Dushama or Sushama, or it is it's a complementary behavior of Sushama, Dushama. So therefore, both of them can actually compromise our Utsaha. So Patanjali Maharshi says, it is not enough if you just have faith. You must also have Virya, that is total energy and courageous energy, which I translate with the help of this Subhashita as Utsaha. So the Subhashita says, Sotsahanam, Sautsahanam, those who never allow their enthusiasm to wane, no matter what happens. Sotsahanam, Nasti Asadhyam Naranam. There is nothing that can actually prevent them from achieving this. So we need the second element of this sutra, which is Viryam, Utsaha. But Utsaha and Shraddha themselves are not enough. The third thing we require is Smriti. Smriti means the study that we have done, and that has to be memorized, whatever we have studied. And we have to constantly remember that Ishvara is within our own heart, and Ishvara is this worshipful deity with whom we are establishing the relationship. Constant memory, Smriti, is very, very important. And what does this Smriti do? The Smriti gives direction to our Shraddha and Virya, and not only that, it will keep us in that direction. It will not allow us to stray from our path. As I many times mentioned, if you want to go to Cleveland, from Columbus, you take 71 North. And then of course we pull somewhere to go to the rest area, or we go to a restaurant to have a cup of coffee. You have to get out of the freeway. But then you have to get back on the freeway. How do you get back on the freeway? Because you remember that I have to go to Cleveland. That's Smriti. And there you cannot go and then change your direction and go to east, west or south. And what does this Smriti do? The third point, the Smriti do, that keeps us on the path towards the goal of Samadhi. So the Subhashita says, Marga Rabdhaha. Marga Rabdhaha means those by means of memory keep to this path, even though here and there we digress. It is possible. Some things will come in our lives for which we have got to take a little break, but the Smriti is the one which brings back the Shraddha and Virya to us as soon as whatever urgent is taken care of. Marga Rabdhaha. So when this is done, what happens? This samadhi or the contemplation and perfect concentration occurs. So this perfect contemplation, this Subhashita says, Sarva Yatnaha, all the efforts. What are all the efforts? The effort of rubbing ourselves with Ishvara, the effort of digging into our heart, the effort of constantly maintaining the enthusiasm, which is mapped onto Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, will lead to this Samadhi or the perfect contemplation. Phalanti, Sarvayatnaha, Phalanti. It gives actually the fruit. What is the fruit? The fruit is Prajna. Prajna is the highest wisdom, the highest knowledge. And again, this is absolutely, we must maintain the sequence. First it is Shraddha, then it is Virya, then it is Smriti, then it is Samadhi, then Prajna. Through this algorithm, Patanjali Maharshi says, Itaresham, for those who cannot straight away go into the yogic state as defined earlier, they will also be able to get the same end. So,
big question. So you talked about Smriti in this verse. Similarly, in verse 6, you had mentioned Smrityaha, but I don't think that was in a good way. So what's the difference between the two?
Yavadu Smriti?
The verse 6, Pramana Viparyaya Vikalpa Nidra Smrityaha.
Alli, there the Smriti, Pramana Vikalpa Nidra Smritayaha, where there is, it is causing the fluctuation of the mind and disturbing you. But here, Shraddha and Virya generated Smriti is a Smriti of Ishvara. I am taking Ishvara as the goal. So constant memory of Ishvara, that's why, we have Nama Japa. It's a very good point you brought, Aruna. Why do we do Nama Japa? Constant Nama Japa. Especially if you look at the around the 17th and 18th centuries, 1600 to actually 19th century, 1600 to 1800, a lot of push was given for Nama Parayana, Nama Japa. And in the last week, you remember I talked about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who took the Krishna mantra, Nama Japa of Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Tyagaraja Swami took Rama, Rama, Rama. So what this Nama Japa does is, it gives us this kind of Smriti, which is different from the Smriti of Dukkha. So a Smriti of Dukkha and the challenges of life and the conflicts of life are overwritten by the Smriti of this Nama Parayana. So we will, so that is the difference between this Smriti. So Smriti is this double-edged tool. So now, therefore, yoga can be achieved by discipline and unfoldment of the powers within us. So what is the conclusion? The conclusion is Patanjali Maharshi is using or leveraging the relationship with Ishvara for one reason, not to create an attitude in us that somehow if I show bhakti to Ishvara, all my difficulties will be taken away. Please tell me whose difficulty has been taken away by merely doing puja. It might have given us Chitta Shuddhi. Puja gives Chitta Shuddhi. What does Chitta Shuddhi do? Chitta Shuddhi enables Shraddha. Otherwise, the mind is so disturbed that it is impossible to have Shraddha. So therefore, we use puja, ritualistic puja, to bring Chitta Shuddhi, so that you get into dhyana state with Shraddha, Virya, Smriti. Now, an interesting observation happens. We learn to see the potential for dukkha in every experience. This is what Shastra calls it as dukkha dosha anudarshanam. In an experience, you now see there is a nucleus, there is a potential for future dukkha. And to remove that future dukkha, you take action now. I am only 20 years old. When I turn 80 years old, my body will become frail. So at that point of time, my lifestyle has to change. And the possibility that 50, 60 years later, what will be the state of my health? Looking at that, a lifestyle the yogi adopts today. By means of proper eating, by means of proper exercise. So even now, youngsters do exercise. Even now, youngsters do dieting. But do they have in their mind a horizon which extends to 50, 60 years? Because it is not enough if I am healthy at 20, 30, 40, 50. I have to be healthy even at 80. And for that, I must know what to accept and what to reject. This is called dukkha dosha anudarshanam. This dukkha dosha anudarshanam also happens in the process of this 5-step methodology that Patanjali gives in this Sutra 20. Very much within our hands. Simple. I am here. I have faith in Ishvara. Therefore, I will be in the contemplation of Ishvara with full faith and confidence. And this I will do with enthusiasm. And I can establish a relationship with Ishvara when doing puja. When I am not doing puja, I am doing something, I will discover it within myself. And at any point of time I catch myself losing enthusiasm for life, I will remind myself Smriti. Hey, you are becoming a little bit negative. Come on, be enthusiastic. Buckle up. You tell yourself, because of this Smriti. And for that Smriti, Virya, your energy will actually contribute. So by properly managing these 5 and then getting perfect at that, Patanjali Maharshi says, Itaresham, others also are capable of attaining this Samprajnata Samadhi and Asamprajnata Samadhi also. So then the next sutra he says, anticipating our question, okay, when do I get this? When do I get it? How do I get it? How soon do I get it? Then he says it only depends on your own intensity of practice. So he says, Tivra samveganam asannaha. Those who have got an intensity, depending on the intensity of the effort, you will get it. If you go at 35 miles per hour, it takes so long to get to Cleveland. If you go at 70 miles per hour, it will take so long to get there. That's it. It takes half the time. If you don't digress and then get out of the freeway for coffee, this and that, then you will reach in 1.5 hours. It all depends on how much of commitment you have to reach the goal in a given period of time. Tivra samveganam asannaha. But again, he is very compassionate. He says, well, we cannot simply impose this on everybody, because people are also made of different qualities. And therefore, different qualities are mrudu, madhya, adimatrat, tatopi vishesha. So we can classify them as who are very, very tentative and who are a little bit committed and who are intensely committed. Based on that, they will attain. So it's pretty much self-explanatory. So everything centered around one concept, that is, I have got to somehow find another Purusha with whom I can rub shoulders and get into this state of Samadhi. So Patanjali Maharshi now introduces a role model called Ishvara. So in 23, he introduces the concept of Ishvara, Ishvara Pranidhanadva. So we may not be able to control our chitta vritti on ourselves, so why not we surrender to Ishvara? The Pranidhana details we are going to see in the second chapter more deeply. Now the question is, what exactly do we mean by Ishvara? Who is this, or which is this concept to whom we are advised to surrender? And here, actually, Ishvara is the Saguna Brahman. This Ishvara is not the absolute Parabrahman, because Parabrahman cannot be defined. It cannot be an object of meditation, because it cannot objectify Parabrahman. So here he is talking about Ishvara as God. In fact, earlier in our Veda class I was talking about the absolute having different nomenclature. It is called as Paramatma, Parabrahman, Paramatma, Parabrahman, Parama Akasha, that is the infinite space. These are all synonyms of Parabrahman. But what we are talking about is something that is tangible, something that I can actually visualize. So he introduces a concept of Saguna Parabrahman, not the Nirguna Nirakara Aprakrita Parabrahman. Aprakrita means not made up of any elements. Prakrita is elemental. So we want a role model which is elemental in nature. The Prakrita role model has to be done. So Ishvara has got to be this Purusha only. And we must have some relationship with this entity called Ishvara. So let's look at some of the abilities of Ishvara. Ishvara must be within Prakriti, because Prakriti is perceptible to us. So, but Prakriti is, what is Prakriti made up of? Prakriti is made up of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamo gunas. If Ishvara is also full of sattva, rajas, tamo gunas, then I am also made up of sattva, rajas, tamo gunas. Then how can Ishvara become a Purusha Vishesha, a very special Purusha? So there must be some distinct feature between me and Ishvara, if Ishvara is to be worshipped. What is that special feature? That special feature is, while as an individual human being, my nature is predominantly Rajastamo gunas, Ishvara's predominant guna is Sattva guna. So let us relate this to yoga and lack of yoga. Yoga is where a Purusha refines the Sattva guna to such an extent that the influence of Rajoguna and Tamoguna is minimal. Then the person This Purusha is supposed to be in the realm of Maya. If the Purusha has got predominant Rajoguna and Tamoguna, he is in the realm of Avidya. This is the distinction. Because later on we are going to see the problem of a human being who has no yoga is because of avidya. So what is avidya? Avidya is the manifestation of a Purusha who has a predominance of Rajastamo gunas. So faggot number 1, is Rajastamo guna predominant, but Sattva guna is there in me. With these 3, I have got avidya. Then Ishvara, we have got a Purusha. And that Purusha also is in Prakriti. But the predominant guna for Ishvara is Sattva guna. And because of Sattva guna, he is the dominant one who can dominate upon Maya. Krishna also says, Mayam adhisthaya. Make that as a tool for me. With that tool, what does he do? He creates a Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. So the Ishvara that we are going to worship, who is in Prakriti, he is Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, one who causes, he is a Karana, who causes Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, and also who is the basis for the entire Srishti. It is called Adhisthana. But what is he made up of? Full of Sattva guna only. And hence, Parabrahman, whom we called as Paramakasha, Ishvara is now called as Chidakasha. Because we are talking about Chitta in Yoga Shastra. So he is completely the space filled with the Chitta or Sattva guna, and therefore Ishvara is the other person I am going to do pranidhana, because Ishvara actually responds to my relationship with him, since Sattva guna's ability is Parama Prema Rupa. What is the tangible, palpable, which you can feel in any relationship? Is it not love? Whether it is a love between mother and father, mother and child, whether it is love between two friends, whether it is a love between husband and wife, it is very palpable. And whenever there is such a love, it means that the Sattva guna is manifesting. And now suppose we actually extrapolate this to the universal level, then Ishvara becomes Parama Prema Rupa. Now we have got to address another question. What if I don't care for Ishvara? This is something we face with, especially with our children. Suppose we say, why don't you pray? Why don't you do some meditation? Why don't you say a prayer? Why don't you learn a shloka? They resist. Why do they do that? The reason for that resistance is that they do not see this hidden concept of Ishvara inhering in the entire universe and also in my heart. Therefore, what is it that is covering? What is covering all these things is our mind again. This mind thinks, I can see Prakriti, and I am a scientist, and I take the various aspects of this Prakriti, the Panchabhutas, and by formatting and reformatting this Panchabhutas, I can make my life Sukha. And to a great extent, we have also proved that it is true. After all, what is heating and air conditioning? It is the reformatting of the Panchabhutas only, isn't it? And we have added our own skills of innovation and engineering. And therefore, what happens is the person will think, if I can dominate Prakriti with the help of science and technology, I don't need Ishvara. This is also beautified in the story of Daksha Prajapati. So Daksha Prajapati, who was born out of the mind of Brahma, was actually given all the powers over creation, Srishti. That's why he's called Prajapati. So what did he do? He produced children by marrying this Asikni. Asikni is actually one of the rivers now in Punjab. So he marries Asikni, and every kind of living being is created, human beings, animals, serpents, so all kinds of was created. He created trees, herbs, everything Daksha Prajapati creates. And then he decides, I have no use for God. Not only that, he also becomes contemptuous for Shiva because of the way in which he lived, and in the way in which he clothed himself, by not clothing himself. So what happened to Daksha? Over dependence on our own abilities. Ultimately, what happens? The most important thinking organ, the head, Daksha Prajapati lost. Head is the thinking organ. This is all metaphorical. So whenever we completely reject Ishvara, your yogi will be able to get many powers, but then our dream that we are the rulers of Prakriti will be negated. So therefore, we do need a Ishvara role model. And what kind of role model we want this Ishvara? This Ishvara must be able to create, must be able to present to us the choice. Do you want to pursue some tamoguna, rajoguna, or sattva-guna? What do you want to pursue? Depending on what we want to pursue, suppose we ask for wealth and material yogakshema, Ishvara gives. But then he also gives it with its disadvantages of potential dukkha. What is the problem with wealth and materials? Arjane dukkham. There is pain in acquiring. Rakshane dukkham. Pain in maintenance. Nashe dukkham. Pain in loss. So Yoga Shastra is saying, ask for wealth, material wealth and all that, fully being aware of the potential for dukkha. Then you become yogi. Please don't misunderstand that we don't welcome dukkha. It will come if it has to come. For the fortunate, it may not come, but because they are fortunate. In other words, material dukkha has got unpredictability. Material possessions have unpredictability. So we develop, with this negation of Ishvara, as I was mentioning in the Bhagavad Gita class on Wednesday, we develop three kinds of attachments. It is called as Vitteshana, that is a relentless greed for wealth. Putreshana, that is an attachment to all the projects that we have, including our children. Our children, we have got to let them be. Then there'll be a lot of peace for us. So the second thing is putreshana. Then the third thing is lokeshana. We are always interested in what others think about us. And nobody is thinking what Ishvara thinks about me. Isn't it? The most important person to think well of us is Ishvara. And so Patanjali Maharshi now introduces Ishvara, who is Nana Rupani Apnoti. Ishvara is the one who assumes many, many forms. And all the forms are manifestation of Ishvara. And when we see, instead of dukkha dosha in everything, see, this is where I'm making a paradigm shift. In materials, wealth, relationships, and in power, instead of seeing the potential of dosha, if we are able to see the potential of the gunas, then Shastra says, Gunan Jayishyati. The person can dominate over the gunas. Many, many yogis have proved how they can dominate on gunas. Ramana Maharshi, the very famous statement, we have talked about it many times. Pain, yes, suffering, no. When he makes that statement, pain, he acknowledges that there is pain in our lives, but there need not be a suffering for one who is doing Ishvara Pranidhana. So makes a strong case of why don't you do Ishvara Pranidhana, which is a simpler way than many of the techniques that we have seen. So we will spend a couple of minutes on how to worship. Here I am again borrowing from the brilliant presentation of Srimad Ramanujacharya, because he was the one who really brought bhakti into Ishvara Pranidhana in the perfect manner. So first and foremost is making up our mind for devotion, making it ready for devotion. A priming is required. And how do we get that? By means of practice. That's all. Do Sandhya Vandana every day. Do Gayatri Japa every day. That's all. Everybody can do Sandhya Vandana. Nobody is prevented. Nobody is prevented. Men, women, nothing is a barrier for you to do Gayatri Japa. Nobody can say it is against Shastra if you say Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And that abhyasa is called Anukulyasya Sankalpaha. Sankalpaha, that means you make up your mind. Anukulyasya, I am going to ready my personality, body, mind and intellect for Ishvara's worship. That is why in our tradition we brought dress code. Take a bath, take a shower, take a bath before you do puja. Change into this kind of particular kind of dress when you do worship. Why all those things? It is getting the body ready. And wear the marks, kunkuma, vibhuti, nama, whatever. Why? All these things are really not required, but it is a process of getting ready. Anukulyasya sankalpa. But whenever we do all these things, a lot of question comes in our mind. Oh, why should I do this? Who will do it? And who has achieved all these things? All these are symbols of sectarianism. And so we have heard of all these things. And the second important attitude is required is pratikulasya varjanam. To reject attitudes and behavior to take away negativity from our mind. This is Vairagya. Vairagya from negativity. Second point. Thus, Abhyasa and Vairagya can be interpreted as Anukulyasya Sankalpaha Pratikulasya Varjanam, making this determination. Then he talked about Shraddha in the previous sutra. That Shraddha is confidence, Rakshishyati iti Vishwasaha. Rakshishyati iti Vishwasaha. How can I get that confidence in Ishvara? It is because Ishvara adhi vasati. Adhi means as a support, exists. Because nothing can exist in vacuum. If the universe is existing, something is supporting that. And that support is Ishvara. And how does he support? Kalidasa in his Shakuntala, in the Nandi Shloka, gives us a beautiful explanation of how Ishvara is the Adhisthana or the support of the entire creation. Ya srishtis srashtuhu adya vahati vidhihutam ya haviryasa hotri, etc. I talked about this in detail earlier also. So under all the elements, it is Ishvara who created. Ishvara is the prayer. Ishvara is the object of prayer. Ishvara is the person who is praying, the Yajamana. Ishvara is the one who maintains time through Surya and Chandra. Ishvara is the one who is pervading the entire universe as Akasha or space, enabling sound to travel. And Ishvara is the Sarva Bija, that is the source of all and the very life force. Thus, we have got to meditate upon Ishvara. When that happens, we accept Ishvara as the protector. This is the fourth step of Prapatti, and that is called as Goptritva Varanam, accepting Ishvara as the protector. Then the fifth aspect is where Virya Smriti is actually complete surrender to this Ishvara or Sharanagati. Prapatti immediately follows with Sharanagati. And what is this Sharanagati? It is called Atmanikshepam, completely place myself at the idea of this Ishvara. And to bring humility, because we have to have humility also. Otherwise, I am a devotee, I worship Ishvara, as though Ishvara worships my prayer. We get an arrogance that I am a bhakta. And to remove that arrogance, Acharya says, there must also be a humility called karpanyam. I alone cannot achieve this state without your enabling me. This is the reason why in all the Sri Vaishnava temples you have the Shatagopan. The Shatagopan is the feet of the Lord. So you take the feet of the Lord and place it on your head. So what is that symbol? That symbol is that without you, your feet on my head, it is impossible for me to achieve Prapatti and Sharanagati. So when the sages have brought all this even in ritualistic worship, and in all the ritualistic worship, how to do Ishvara Pranidhana. And the purpose of Ishvara Pranidhana is for the sake of making Ishvara as the role model And the role model of Ishvara is Sattva Bhava, Sattva Guna, increasing the Sattva Guna by making the role model of Ishvara is Ishvara Pranidhana. So Patanjali Maharshi makes a powerful case for Itaresham, for those who cannot do Asamprajnata Samadhi and Samprajnata Samadhi, which is mainly possible for true sannyasis. For us grihasthas, Ishvara Pranidhana seems to be a very, very efficient, effective means for Chittavritti Nirodha. And more about Ishvara we will see in our next class. Thank you.